was a police officer. He waved at me though. So I've had this bike for about a week. And I'm still just completely blown away by how awesome it is. How well it handles. And this. Before I bought it, while I was researching it, I was a little concerned about that it wouldn't be great for touring or longer distances because it's geared really high. It's always in high revs. It's not a, get on the highway and forget about it kind of thing. It's buzzy and vibration-y. But, you got to learn to stay out of the vibration range, which is about 5,000 RPM. If it's bothering you. Things I love. Number one is going to be the quick shifter, which is just absolutely a dream and smooth. Sometimes I'll get false neutrals coming, well, not false neutrals, neutrals coming from first into second. But it's not a big deal, and it's my fault. It's not like it's a malfunction. It has to do with how you deliberately shift up. If you do it too light, you're going to go hit neutral. The suspension, as I just roll over a pothole, is dreamy and smooth, and I don't feel too many bumps. The balance of this bike, everyone who's ridden it besides me, my friends and whatnot, say it feels like it's self-balancing, which it really does. The sound, it's another thing I love. The sound is just to die for. There's the stock pipe. Has been removed so that it is a little more throaty and deep than it would be otherwise. Just, it's a lovely sound, and the only reason I would think to get an exhaust is to kind of clean up the back, maybe, just to make it look better. Maybe a new exhaust would add a few horsepower or whatever, who cares? I already have 160. The sound, though, I don't really need an exhaust to give a better sound, because the sound is just currently fantastic. I love the riding position. It's super comfy. The seat is also very comfortable, much more comfortable than my Hyperstrada Ducati. Thank you, sir. feel like I'm getting blown especially when I open that throttle, create the gyroscope effect. Need to turn around. I want to take that Nicasio Valley Road. See if this guy. You good? You good? Always stop and help people. I mean, I'm not much of a mechanic, but at least I could, you know, hold the bike for him or make a phone call if he needs it or something, because if you don't stop for a biker, chances are no one's going to stop for you when you need it. I'm still in the honeymoon period, so I'm going to be pretty biased in the positive category. The only sort of negatives I'm thinking about, let's see. Another positive, I get 40 miles to the gallon, and I, you know, ride it like a sport bike. You saw me opening the throttle and taking it to redline through the gears. Still get about 40. Okay, now some of the negatives. Well, there are vibrations, but the bar ends that I've ordered, plus these foam grips, really should kind of help that. You know, that's comes to the you know, the price is a thing. These are anywhere used from 15,000 to 25,000 new. That's not really a negative. That comes with the territory, and if you can afford it, obviously not a negative. But when giving an objective sort of critique, it's worth mentioning. I honestly cannot think of, you know, where this bike doesn't get at least an 8 out of 10. What kind of category that would be. You know, fuel mileage is good. Obviously speed and power is good. Handling is amazing. All the electronic rider aids do their job exceedingly well without ever feeling like they're taking over. It's just it's a real pleasure to ride. That's all there is to it. Highly recommend this bike. And that's coming from someone who test rode the Multistrada, test rode the new Ducati Supersport, test rode the Multistrada 950, test rode Bmw 1000R, that RR. I even test rode a GS. GS was it was fun. It was big. The boxer engine is great. doesn't vibrate like this does. But to me, also the shaft drive is quite cool. Low maintenance, well, zero maintenance. But I felt like I was piloting a boat. The section here is just twice as big as mine on this XR, and it just, I don't know, it just seemed a little too like a tank. Some people like that. I wanted a sport bike that was comfortable, and that is exactly what the XR is. You know, I really wanted an RR. For years I've been dreaming about that bike, and I finally was in a position where I could buy one. Started test driving them, and then someone said, you know, the way you ride, you know, they knew that I was into longer trips and as well as city commuting and whatnot. They said, the way you ride, man, you should check out the XR. And I never really considered it, but I did. And boy, from the second I got on it, these roads are terrible, but the XR is just gobbling them up. Terrible meaning quality of the roads, the bumpy potholes. Anyway, long story short, if you're still watching, at least go test drive one of these. Just to get an idea. If you're interested in a sport touring, this is the one. Not to mention the creature comforts it has, like cruise control, and heated grips. Which in the Bay Area, heated grips you'll use every day, because every day past 5 o'clock it drops 10-15 degrees. I've got a Michelin Pilot Road 4s, and so far so good. I hear they're pretty good in wet conditions. Luckily I've not tested that yet. This bike really feels like skiing downhill in snow and powder, the way you can just carve. Oh boy, that was a police officer. He waved at me though, must have liked my bike. One thing, you know, all the rider aids do, and you'll hear this on other channels as well, they let you focus on riding and the craft of riding, the setting up for the turn, getting the proper speed and gear, because, you know, it's not a big deal, and I know it sounds ridiculous that you don't have to pull in your clutch to downshift, but it adds up. All the little things you don't have to do or worry about. You know, the brakes are fantastic. All I got to do when I come into a corner is just tap my front brake. The brakes are linked, so that will, you know, brake the back as well. I downshift with my foot, don't need to worry about my hand, and it just, over time, you're able to get into that sweet spot, happy place a lot easier. At least I am. So I really appreciate that about this bike. And I realize it's not for everyone. Some people like the challenge of constantly having to, you know, worry about locking up the back wheel and, you know, being as raw as possible. But for me, I like to ride, and I don't like to worry about inconsequentials. And this bike allows you to just focus on the road. Here we are in Fairfax, which is a sweet town in Marin County. the balance of this thing. I'm just at low speed. It's so easy to lane split, and just kind of move around flawlessly. So yeah, let's rehash a little bit. Top 5 things I love about this bike. Quick shifter is definitely going to be number 1. Number 2 is going to be the brakes. 3, the sound. 4, let's go with the seat, which is extremely comfortable. And number 5, I think, is everything else. There's nothing I don't like about this bike, so we're going to leave it at that. You owe it to yourself to test ride a bike this cool, whether it's you get a multi or you get an XR or you get a GS. Don't hesitate. Trade in your old bike. Work longer, save more, because every time you get on this, any hesitation you had or any regret will disappear. It's the best kind of therapy. Not that you need therapy, but I mean it's the best kind of relaxation therapy. I will say, I guess we can talk about one negative, especially coming from a Ducati. People go crazy over Ducati. Something about the style, and I will say Multistrada, just on a in a picture, I believe Multistrada looks nicer than this bike. Totally different aesthetic, of course, but just in my personal opinion, I love the way the Multistrada looks, and then Ducati in general just draw people's attention. Yeah, the brand name is well known, even for people who don't ride. And of course, everyone's heard of BMW, but most non-riders don't associate BMW with motorcycles, so they're not looking for this to be a BMW. And when you tell them this is a BMW, they're like, oh, that's neat, they make motorcycles too. But a Ducati is iconic, and the only negative about this bike, I would say, is that it's not a Ducati and it doesn't get the same kind of wow factor at stoplights or when you pull up to a cafe. No one's going to come out and look at your BMW like they do when you roll up on a Ducati. And that's, again, who cares? It's not a big deal, but since I'm trying to offer some kind of objectivity, this does not have the same appeal to noobs and non-riders that a Ducati would, which doesn't matter, but it's a thing. So that's that. We're about to get on the freeway here. Appreciate you watching. Let me know if you have any questions about the XR, or if you're in the Bay Area and you want to meet up and ride mine and you have a cool bike I want to ride, we can probably arrange that. Otherwise, subscribe for my next video. Alright, Bay Area Rider, signing off.